So as I continued to dive into Isaiah 19, Isaiah 19 talks about an altar and a pillar in the land of Egypt, and it's in the center or the midst of the land and at the border thereof. And Josephus and others, actually quite a number of people, came to the conclusion that the Great Pyramid of Giza is really the only thing that fits that description. And Egypt was divided into Upper and Lower Egypt, which is kind of strange when you look at the map, because Lower Egypt is on top. When you're looking on the map, it's to the north, and Upper Egypt is to the south. But the reason it's said that way is because of the elevation. The delta area of Egypt was Lower Egypt, and the plains area up above it was Lower Egypt. I'm gonna get ahead of myself here. And Josephus talks about the sons of Seth, Adam's third son, building an altar or a monument, a pillar. And the word pillar is kind of deceptive. In the English, when we think pillar, we think a pole, but that's not really the way the word is used. In fact, when you go through various translations and stuff, like even in the biblical text of Isaiah, some of them actually translated as pyramid, others as monument. The same verse right here, Isaiah 19:19, which really caught my attention. And when I was reading about Josephus's account of Seth and his children, Adam had made a prediction that the world would be destroyed twice at some point in the future, once by fire and once by water. And so the children of Seth got together and built two monuments, one of brick and one of stone. And the one with brick would be to withstand the fire, and the one of stone would withstand the water. Well, and Josephus makes reference to the one of stone still being in Syria or Egypt to this day, and that would be in the 1st century when he wrote that. So all things considered, when you look at the various descriptions we have in antiquity for this particular passage right here and for the Great Pyramid of Giza, it seems to be a match. And when I started looking through, I've always been fascinated by the Great Pyramid. I mean, it's an extraordinary structure. It's one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In fact, it's the only one that's still in existence, still there for us to see. And when you look at the time period of when it was built, I mean, even by secular Egyptologists looking at it, they talk about it being built sometime around the 2650 to 2540 BC timeframe, which, according to my research, puts it at about at the flood of Noah, or preceding, just before the flood of Noah, which was about 2348 BC. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through all this just for the sake of time. I've got a whole presentation on it. Actually, let me unshare here and put up another screen in a second. I've got a web page that I put up for the Yahuwah Triangle on my Babylon Rising site right here. If you go to babylonrisingbooks.com/TYT for the Yahuwah Triangle, TYT conference.html. I did a virtual conference back in December 28th of last year, and I put up all the videos from that conference. And at first I was thinking, hey, I got a whole new DVD collection here. And I did eventually make them into DVDs. In fact, this is the first time I've ever told anybody that on the air. But we do have a whole DVD set, box set of 6 DVDs plus a DVD ROM that has a whole lot of information on it, the Yahuwah Triangle DVD set. But originally, I thought this was the only way I was going to put it out, was on DVD. And then God kept telling me, no, you're going to put this one out for free. And I was like, okay, Lord, well, I mean, this is how I make my living. And he goes, yep, I know. I said, all right. So I made the decision. I'm going to put them all up for free. And, we got donate buttons if people are interested, but it's not a prerequisite. It's out there for free. And tens of thousands of people have been watching it. And I put a whole bunch of resources here. These are links to the blogs from which the presentations were derived. This picture right here, let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. Can you see that? This diagram right here? I created this diagram back in 2009 when I was first working on Seed, when I first started working on Seed, the series. I was already aware of the Yahuwah Triangle because when I first read Isaiah 19, it prompted me to plot those points out and make the triangle in the first place. And then I got a little more creative with it, put the north-south lines here, because the Great Pyramid is aligned true north by like it's by a fraction of a degree. I mean, it's pretty dead on. So you got the north-south line, and then I just was thinking kind of in a David Flynn type of mentality. I wonder what happens if I go 33.3 degrees off of the center, which is right here, Giza. And when I did that, the line took me right over Mount Hermon. So wow. I was like, oh, that was interesting. The outer circle that I did right here was because my research on Giza, and we can unpack this however much you want to, but there's so much more to cover. So I just say, hey, watch the video. Basically, in a nutshell, I came to the conclusion that the Giza Plateau may have been the place where God pulled Adam out of the dirt. That he was, Adam showed up on the Giza Plateau, and that was where they made the decision to build the monument. And I give my reasons for that in the blog, and you can go into all these blogs right here. It goes into quite a bit of detail as to why I came to that conclusion. But also, besides the biblical reasons that I came to that conclusion, I found a number of books talking about the idea that the Egyptians had, that was the place of creation. That's where creation began, right there. So there was, even in the Egyptian mindset, this idea that the Giza Plateau marked the beginning of creation. And other cultures, as they began to build pyramids as well, began to have this idea that was where creation was started also, at the location of their pyramids. I just think that that's where they're copying ideas that were originally laid down with the ancient Egyptians. But there seemed to be this association with the creation of a pyramid marking the location of the start of creation. So, and the Giza Plateau also marks the geographical center of the landmass of the Earth. And of course, that would be the Earth on a globe. I would be interested to see how that works on a flat Earth model as we are exploring that. But at least on a map, when you take the landmass together into consideration, and that's going off of a globe model, that it's on the geographical center of the landmass of the planet. So there were just a lot of intriguing things about the pyramid. So, but then they're placed eastward in Eden. And when I thought about that, because most people think of the Garden of Eden as Eden, but no, it says the garden was placed eastward within a landmass that was known as Eden. And of course, when they rebelled, and they sinned in the garden, they were kicked east of Eden. So I went, if this is the north-south line right here, and basically anything this side of the blue line is eastward of that center location. And I drew this circle, this big circle right here, because I got to thinking, if they were kicked out of the garden, which I firmly believe the garden is the area that we now call Israel, and that's what's really exciting to me, and I would definitely want to spend more time talking about that in this show. But in a very specific location within the land of Israel, or the land of Canaan before it became Israel, being I believe the Bible tells you exactly where the two trees were, even, and we can get into that. Where they were kicked east of that, and if you go this map is a little bit deceptive, but because of the way that I did the screen capture off of Google Earth. But if you kind of look at it with more of a flat kind of view, it's almost directly due east of the specific location in the land of Canaan is Babylon. And so I figured, well, if they were kicked east of Eden, then maybe this is the outer boundary of the garden of, or the whole region of Eden. And even the garden, because I believe the garden is telegraphed in the promise to Abraham also, as far as the boundaries go. And you got the Euphrates River right in here. So this was pure speculation. This was just an idea I came up with back in 2009, did this diagram, and kind of just left it at that. This inner circle here represents the beginning of creation, where Adam was formed in the Giza Plateau. This outer ring right here encapsulates the land that we call Israel. today, as well as the land that the Israelites wandered in during their time in the wilderness. But I didn't even know all of that when I did this diagram in 2009. I just did it, put it on the shelf, made it as kind of a plot point for something that I was working on, and it's seed. And then right before the Feast of Tabernacles last year, Sukkot, God put it on my heart, okay, you got to go back and revisit that Yahuwah triangle thing. And I kind of put it off, but he was like pounding it. I was like, I was dreaming about it. I wake up with the things like screaming in my head, and like I couldn't let it go. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll do it. So that's when when the Lord's like really putting something on you, I mean, he makes you very uncomfortable until you do it. So that's when you know the feeling, right? So that's when I wrote these first three right here, and these are all rather lengthy. The part two, this one right here, the Gospel and the Stars Preserved in Stone, is really some pretty wild stuff here based on the work of Joseph Seiss and E.W. Bullinger, who both wrote books. Seiss wrote The Gospel and the Stars, and Bullinger wrote The Gospel. This is The Gospel and the Stars by Seiss, and The Witness of the Stars is the book that Bullinger wrote. And they give the biblical reasons for the constellations, the Mazzaroth of Scripture. And this was quite illuminating to me, especially when it came to Orion. Orion in the Mazzaroth, the biblical signs in the heavens, is not a representation of Nimrod. Nimrod decided to try to usurp that as a representation for himself. But Orion actually represents the Son of God, the light bearer, the victorious, warrior. And he goes, I'm not going to go through that here, but it's all in this blog right here if you want to see where I'm getting that from. But their breakdown of it is quite extraordinary. And when I was looking in my research on the flat Earth idea about the fact that Orion is seen on a globe, both from the northern hemisphere as well as the southern hemisphere, I thought that was rather intriguing, that this particular constellation can be seen no matter where you are. And I began to have the thought that that may be the direction from which the Messiah will return, when every eye shall see him. Now, every eye shall see him is very problematic on a globe, depending on which side of the Earth is facing this particular constellation in that regard. It's real easy on a flat Earth. But, these are just some of the intriguing things that are popping up, because the pyramid has these tunnels in it that look out towards specific constellations and stars, and one of them being Sirius, and enlarge this here. One of them being Sirius and Orion to the south, and Draco to the north. Well, we know that Satan sets himself up, right? That he's known as the dragon, and he wants to set himself up on the sides of the north. And of course, you go further south, you got the Southern Cross. So there's some very interesting things to the south, indicating that's where Messiah will come to attack the dragon who's trying to set himself up on the north. So where Patrick Heron looked at this whole subject, and he came to some of the same conclusions before I did, that I was coming to. He rejected the idea that the pyramid was godly. He thought rather that it was a monument set to honor Lucifer. And this, I love the guy. I had some interaction with him. I wish I would have gotten to know him better before he died. But I have to wonder, as I read his book, The Pyramid of the Apocalypse, if he was not privy to the information put forth by Seiss and Bullinger. Because I think if he was, he would have came to different conclusions. He was looking at this in the same way that I was looking at it before I looked at Seiss and Bullinger, that Orion was a representation of Nimrod, and Osiris, and Sirius. There's all this occult representations that they look at these stars for occult reasons, and of course Draco being the dragon representation of Lucifer. So because of the occult representations of the Mazzaroth, I believe that's what influenced Patrick Heron to say that he didn't think this was a godly structure. Again, if you go through those, I think you'll find some rather interesting stuff too. So anyway, I wrote all that, and in this one right here, I wrote, why Giza. That's where I began to break down my reasons for believing that was the area that marked the location where Adam was pulled from the dust. So I'll stop there, because that's kind of my cliff notes of part one.
Yeah, that's. Do you have me on a speaker?
No.
Oh, for a second I was hearing my own echo, but it seems to have gone away now. Okay, but yeah, okay.